Go.
Hi, this is Jen Briney from the Congressional Dish Podcast, and you are listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer.
That was awesome. And we had some crazy door opening in the background. It was perfect. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Nelson Tressler, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
I'm going good. Thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it turns out you're just down the road or maybe up the road. I'm not exactly sure, but we're both in Vegas. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But there's worse places to be, right?
Right. My parents are in Michigan. They just got like a lot of snow dumped on them, much like we did a couple weeks ago.
My family's back in Pennsylvania, and I think they got the same thing, a couple feet of snow.
Oof, yeah, the East Coast really got smacked a lot. I'm really glad I don't live there. I don't miss it. I grew up in Michigan. I don't need any more snow. Okay, so talk a little bit about what you're most excited about over there at nelsontressler.com.
Well, we've developed a goal achievement program called I Got Smarter. It's associated with an app. And it really gives everybody the tools, knowledge, and support to finally achieve their life's biggest goals.
Nice.
97% of people come up short when it comes to achieving their goals. And the I Got Smarter app, really patches all the holes, makes it almost impossible to fail unless you quit, at finally achieving those goals that everybody sets.
That's pretty neat. And you can download that for free.
You can download it for free. We're giving it away for 30 days. And nice. After that, it's only $9.99 a month.
That's not bad.
No, I mean, that was one of the
like
things.
Cheaper than Netflix.
Yeah,
I like that.
And you know what?
Yeah.
Your life will be a lot better off if you use this app as opposed to binge watching on Netflix.
You're probably right. My parents are in their 80s and they've just recently started binging TV.
Yeah.
Well, they've been binging TV their whole lives, but now they're doing it on Netflix and they're really binging like the rest of us. So I thought that was, equally scary and sad and cool all at once.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easy. Yeah, it's so easy to do. I mean, you get involved in one of those shows and the next one, they always leave a cliffhanger. So like, oh, one more. Right.
Well, it's the autoplay and skip intro. You don't even have to hit those buttons.
Right.
Right. You think you have time to get up, right? But then you'd have to hit pause, right? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your story. Let's go back in time because I know that's a doozy. So this could be a 2-part show. We don't know. I don't know if we'll get through this whole story.
Well, you interrupt me where you like, but yeah, I've got quite the origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old.
Right.
And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in Pennsylvania, drove into the town square. There he spotted 2 police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty for what he had done. And during his trial, my mom got up and testified that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that the police officer had raped her and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
My mom's testimony worked. My grandfather's first trial ended in a hung jury. They did try him again. They took the death penalty off the table because of my mom's testimony. He was eventually found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he ended up spending more than 40 years and dying in prison. Leaving behind in this small town, my mom had 15 brothers and sisters. Leaving behind that family, my mom, and now me in this small town to kind of deal with the circumstances of what he had done.
Wow. Holy cow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and
So how old were you when you heard this story the first time?
Well, I mean, I grew up knowing this story. It was always there. And in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, I write a lot about my childhood. And from that little snippet.
Great title, by the way.
Yeah. From that little snippet of my life, you kind of can see where that title came from. But,
sure,
believe it or not, my life didn't get any easier from that. I'm born to a 15-year-old single mother.
Right.
And
so did she have a mother role, or did she seem more like a sister, or who was the primary caregiver for you?
Oh no, she was definitely in the mother role. It wasn't
Gotcha.
a sister role. Eventually though, she turns 21 and she starts to go to bars, and she brings home a peach of a man who eventually becomes my stepfather. And shortly after moving in and unpacking his boxes, he unpacked a lot of the bad habits that he had. He was an angry drunk, an alcoholic, very physically and emotionally abusive to me and my mom. And so having to deal with that, eventually they have 4 children in quick succession. And because of the lifestyle that they're living, a lot of the basic needs for my siblings fall upon me because I'm the oldest. And, it takes a huge toll on my life and specifically at school. My mom would rather me stay home and help her with the kids than go to school.
Right.
And
okay.
Eventually in 4th grade, at the end of the year in elementary school, you get so excited. You want to look down and kind of see, okay, who am I going to have for homeroom? And are my buddies going to be in my class? And I remember looking down and seeing that I had straight Fs and that I would be repeating the 4th grade. And it probably shouldn't have been any surprise. I missed 40, 50, 60 days that year of school.
Yeah, you just weren't there. It's kind of hard to get good grades when you're not around.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And, at this time, I can't read, I can't write, I can't spell. The following year, the school places me into special ed to try to get the help that I need. Come to find out I have dyslexia.
Ooh,
and
wow. Talk about unlucky. My goodness.
Yeah. Eventually, my stepfather's walking home drunk from a bar one night, and there's somebody else driving home drunk from that bar, and they end up hitting and killing him.
Oh, geez.
And it's at this time, here's my mom, she has 5 small children. She's dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She's never worked outside of the home. And, losing my stepfather, as hard as it was to live with him, pretty much left my mom with no hope.
Kind of high and dry.
Yeah. She really couldn't figure out how she was ever going to care for all of us kids. And it was at this time that she decided she was going to take her own life. And she attempted suicide. And fortunately, she wasn't successful.
Right.
But when she got out of the hospital, it was then she determined that she wasn't going to be able to care for all the kids. And that's when my family got split up. And that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer.
Wow. Okay. So eventually, how old were you then at that point?
Around 10 or 11.
Okay. So that's like 5th, 6th grade, something like that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So is this the turnaround point, or is there more tragedy? Because you probably have not only dyslexia. I'm just curious, but I would think you might have some form of PTSD, diagnosed or otherwise. I don't know. Where were you at in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I was angry. I
bet.
There was a lot of things going on in my life. There were a lot of
the why me, right?
Yeah. There were things going on in this small town. I mean, if you've ever lived in a small town,
Everybody knows everybody's business. Yes,
Yep,
everybody knows everybody.
Everyone's up in your business, and
Yes.
they know everything about you, and about half of it's true.
Right.
But I had to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, there was a turnaround spot. I mean, when I was in 7th grade, I'm living with my grandmother, and for the first time in my life, there's always food in the house. The lights always turn on when you hit the switch. There's always heat in the winter, and that wasn't the case when I was living with my mom and stepfather. And, I didn't have to
these things that you, most of us take for granted.
Yeah.
Seem like a luxury now. It's like, wow, this is cool. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And I didn't have to worry about my stepfather coming home, and beating me or my mom or being drunk. So,
Right.
You get those survival things, taken care of. And all of a sudden you can start really focusing on where you're heading and what your future is going to look like. And one day in 7th grade, a counselor came from the local university and started to talk about what it was going to take to get into college. And I remember thinking at that time, man, if I could get a college degree, the rest of my life would be easy.
Sure.
And
Okay.
that was my mindset at that time. Of the family that I came from, those 15 brothers and sisters of my mom, only 2 had ever graduated from high school. None had ever attended a college.
Okay.
I'm still in special ed. I still can't read or write or spell.
Wow.
But
My goodness.
I really have no options. I see where I'm heading, and I don't want to end up there. So I start trying to do all the things that I think I need to do to get into college.
Okay.
And, long story short, 12 years after that, 4 different universities after that, 4 years in the Air Force.
Hey, Air Force guy.
Yeah.
I was in the Air Force 20 years. So.
Oh,
Hey.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
For your service.
And thank you for your service.
And, I eventually did become that first person in my family to graduate.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah. I could write a book about like how to get a 4-year degree in 20 years. It's actually longer than 20 years. But yeah, it was not necessarily a goal. It ended up that when I retired and had like my second job post-retirement, I wanted to use up that, I don't know if you know, but the post 9/11 GI Bill was awesome. Not only did they pay your tuition and then some, but they also gave you like a housing allowance for E5. E5 BAH is what they did. And then for like 36 months, as long as you're attending school. So I took advantage of that.
Oh, nice.
And finished my degree. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. And then I did massage school too. Anyway, enough about me. Okay. So, but let's dive down a little bit into that, because that didn't just happen overnight. I mean, we skipped over a lot of the nitty gritty there. Like, just how long did it take you to learn to read, learn to write? At what age did you get out of special ed and sort of like graduate into ordinary classes?
Yeah. And again, I write about this in the Unlucky Sperm Club.
I bet. Yeah.
So
It's a good story. I kind of want a copy of this book now. Could be a movie of the week or maybe even a Netflix series. I don't know.
Yeah. Have Tom Hanks contact me.
You got it. Me and Tom, we're tight. Yeah.
One day at the end of 10th grade, you always took a test in special ed to kind of assess where you're at. And I remember at the end of 10th grade, I walked into the special ed classroom, and the teacher was there, and, she kind of had moistened eyes. And, I sat down, and she came and sat down beside me and said, "You know what, Nelson, I'm so proud of you." And I'm like, "Okay, for what?" And she's like, "Your scores were high enough that you're not going to be in the special ed program next year." And,
wow. Okay. 10th grade. Wow.
10th grade. And then after that, I started, in all the normal classes.
Okay.
At that time I had kind of learned how to read a lot better and write. I mean, I still can't spell. So
dyslexia is tough.
Yeah.
That doesn't get better, right? I mean, you just learn to deal with it basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I live in a time where there's spell check on the computer, because without that, no one would take me seriously.
Anybody that's ever worked with me knows that I type really fast, but I make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And thankfully, though, the human brain is very adaptable. So even when I don't correct myself, people still know what I mean.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, so then I passed out of that, and then I started taking normal classes. Even took a few college prep courses.
Nice. Those are hard.
Yeah, I was pretty good at math and numbers.
Okay.
So I mean, and then I was a pretty good athlete, so I had that going for me. And I had one college that was willing to take a chance on me to come play football for them, and because of that, you're a massage therapist, so they massage the admission requirements, and
They do.
yeah, and if you've ever stuck, that elbow deep in somebody's back, you like a deep tissue. I mean, it was deeper than that.
I know that move. Oh, they had to go real deep.
Yeah,
on your record, huh?
Yeah. But I got in, and just like any goal, I mean, there's those hurdles. And I remember getting at the end of my first year, and I had gotten some small scholarship money and Pell Grants and things like that the first year.
Okay.
At the end of the year, I owed $3,500 to go back the next year. And I'm living with my grandma at this time. She's making $4,800 a year.
Okay.
And, I realized there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to go back to college.
Right.
And then that's when I decided that I was going to go into the Air Force. And, I'd heard about the GI Bill there. I heard the Air Force will let you go to classes while you were in. And,
right. What people don't know about is the tuition assistance and how awesome that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? I think when I was in, it was like 75%.
I don't
the
even
tuition
remember.
on each
I
class.
just remember. Yeah. I remember getting out, and it pretty much covered everything. But
right.
The Air Force checked a lot of boxes for me. One, it showed me how I was going to be able to pay for school, but I think even more importantly was it got me out of that town where my last
Amen.
name, yeah.
Amen. Yes, getting out of Dodge.
Yeah,
that was my major motivation for joining the Air Force, I think.
Yeah, and so
leaving.
now I didn't have to worry about all those circumstances surrounding my birth and what my last name meant and how people looked at you and judged you. And
right.
For the first time, I could really be myself. And I remember thinking to myself, in the Air Force, like no one knows who you are. You can be anybody that you want to be.
Yeah. Yes.
It was liberating, and I just remember, okay, you know what? It's a blank slate here, and you get to write the story, and that's when I just started to make the choices to eventually start to live the life that I wanted to live.
So, what was your AFSC?
I was an A shopper on the EF 111. Raven.
A shopper. So avionics, you were a pointy head? Yeah. Wow. Good for you. That means you're pretty smart, actually. I've got a buddy who's, I don't want to, call you smart if you don't think you are. Avionics, that's the people that swap boxes, right? The avionics packages. Yep. So you know how to do electronics and troubleshooting and stuff like that. So
yeah.
As far as people that work on the flight line, they call them pointy heads. That means they're the smart ones. Okay, sorry, I digress. I have a buddy who's a avionics guy, and I think he worked for Intel Corporation. Servicing those in Phoenix, the fabs that do the make the silicone wafers. Yeah, so pointy heads are pretty smart. So good for you.
I'll take it.
So did you get to travel at all?
Yeah, I actually served over in Turkey and Saudi Arabia.
Oh, nice. Saudi Arabia.
EDY.
I went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Where did you go? Did you go to PSAB?
I went to
Riyadh.
Riyadh.
So what was that like 90, 91, something like that? Like the first Gulf War?
I went in right after the war. So I went in 92.
Gotcha. Okay. I had a buddy, I was stationed in Hawaii at that time. and he deployed to Riyadh too. And he stayed in one of those fancy hotels before they built the base.
Yeah.
Where did you stay? In a tent?
No, you know what? I actually did. I stayed in, we had like a condo. It was like
right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So
Kobar. It was Kobar Towers, if you remember.
I do. Yeah. That was the one that ended up getting bombed, right?
Yeah, it got bombed, the transfer after me.
Wow. Okay. So now your luck is changing a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and
You
then
got lucky.
Turkey, I did stay in a tent. So
Incirlik? No.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. I never made it to Turkey. I don't know if I missed anything or not, but
I love Turkey.
Did you?
It was pretty cool. You know what? Serving overseas, you get your eyes open to really how blessed we are to live in the United States.
Yes. I mean, it's nice it's nice having the comparative thing, I don't know.
Well, I think contrast is a huge thing in our lives, no matter what. And that was one of the things, I think helped me is I had contrast, from my family. I got to see how other families reacted because early on I thought, you know what, this is what happens. This is what dads do. And,
this is normal. This is the way life is. Right.
Yeah.
And you have no idea. Right. Wow. That's quite a comparison, kind of, a little scary. Right. Yeah. This is I guess this is just how everybody is. Wow.
Yeah. I think you need contrast in a lot of your life. I mean, as far as, lifestyles and health and, all those categories of your life, I think contrast helps you really dig in there and see what's available and what's out there, because without contrast, you kind of get painted in a box. And
totally.
I think social media is, accentuating that, because on social media, all you're talking to are the people who pretty much think the same way you do. And you're seeing the things that you like. And I think that contrast is going away. You think everybody is like you. And
they only put out the highlights of, the cool things in their lives. It's like nobody is doing a video of, hey guys, I just rolled out of the sack and I got bedhead and sleep in my eyes. Nobody does that. Right. I mean, it all happens. It happens to everybody every day, but you get like the shiny version of everybody's lives. Right. And when you compare yourself to that, you're like, I must be a piece of shit. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, so you're in the Air Force, right? So did you finish your degree while you were in the Air Force?
No, I did take some classes. Those are a few of the universities I did, but eventually I got out.
Okay, and then you used the GI Bill to finish up.
Yeah, I met my wife. We got married with 9 months left, and then came back to Las Vegas and went to UNLV.
Oh, wow.
Started a window cleaning company, worked my way through school. It took me 3 more years. And eventually got my finance degree from UNLV.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. So you've been in Vegas for a while.
Since 96.
My goodness. So you've really seen it change. It's blown up since 96.
Yeah. And I went into commercial real estate right out of school. So I definitely got to see a lot of growth and benefited, hugely from it with all the growth. So yeah, it's been great to me and my family.
I bet. Okay. Well, let's get into those details a little bit. So you really turn it around.
Yeah. So, I mean, after getting my college degree, I mean, the one thing that I realized is I set a goal to do that. It took me 12 years at 4 different universities, 4 years in the Air Force, but eventually I did it. Somebody like me who, couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell, had dyslexia, came from the family I came from, and still I was able to do that. And that really opened my mind to the power and the potential that lies in goals and personal development. And after that, I became obsessed with goals and personal development and started to use them in every area of my life, to design the life that I wanted to live. Again, I really felt like I could be anybody and do anything that I wanted, after leaving that small town and leaving behind, all that stuff that
the baggage. Right. Yes.
Yeah. And so I've done that. And, you know, it's been 20 years since I've graduated from college. You know, I've been able to use goals and personal development to become, you know, the top salesman worldwide for a top 5 commercial real estate firm in the retail division several times.
Wow.
I've been able to start more than 10 businesses, including, you know, one of the largest privately held pet resort chains in the country. And started a couple trampoline parks, family fun centers. And now I'm working with I Got Smarter and the goal achievement app to help other people achieve their goals and give them all the tools and the knowledge and the support that they need to live their dream life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it all came from that, the humble beginnings, but not only that, I mean, like, where was your head, say, like, just after you get out of the Air Force? Are you like crazy happy, or are you just like determined? What I'm just trying to get into your head at that point, you know, because it's like, that's interesting to me. When I got out, I was a little bit sort of like, I don't know, like, I don't know what I want to do next. It seems like you were just laser focused.
Yeah. I mean, I went into the Air Force specifically to get money
to do the college thing.
Yeah, to do college and to get away from my town.
Mm-hmm.
So the Air Force, you know, I love my time in there. I learned so much. I love serving our country, but the Air Force was always an ends to the means, you know, for me.
Got it. Right. It was a way to finish your school.
I knew
it's a really good plan because it works.
Yeah. And, you know, I got to go to different countries and see different cultures. So, I mean, it was a great experience to me, and I loved it. But when I got out,
you're just laser focused on finishing that degree. Oh, so you got a degree in finance from UNLV. I remember that. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Yep. So how did you do in your UNLV days? Did you get your academic sort of like self together at that point?
Oh yeah. I did.
Did you enjoy the experience too?
I did. I mean, I was an adult, you know, I was 25, 26, 27 years old. I was married. I had a kid towards, the last couple years of college. So it wasn't like, you know, I got to go to the fraternity. And
It wasn't like the Animal House kind of college experience.
And you know what? I had a goal. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was focused. You know, I was focused on my studies and really put the time and effort in to get good grades and get the most out of it. I mean, I had sacrificed a lot to be able to go to college, and I was paying for it myself. And you know, I was out there washing windows in Vegas in 115-degree weather to pay for it. So I think at that time I really understood, you know, how important it was. And I wasn't just looking to get by. I was looking to get the most out of it because of everything that I had put into it.
Basically, you're like, okay, I've got the Air Force, I've got the GI Bill. Now I can finish this college thing. And then the next move is going to be awesome. Something like that, right? It's like one goal at a time. Okay. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I was laser focused on that goal of getting the degree. I mean, I ended up, I thought I was going to go into stockbroker or something like that in finance, but I couldn't get an internship in that, thank goodness, and got one in commercial real estate, and then went a different direction. And so, you know, it's like any goal. I mean, you start off with one vision, and sometimes, you know, you get thrown a curveball, you got to pivot a little bit. And, you know, many times that's the best thing that can happen to you. And it certainly was for me.
So you're kind of happy. So did you kind of like know some finance guys and you're like, well, I dodged a bullet there. It sounds like
not necessarily. I mean, I just, you know, it's just really worked out really well for me. You know, I think it steered me to where I
needed to be
well with that. Yeah. I mean, I could talk to people, and, you know, I love putting deals together, and it also exposed me to all these other businesses that I eventually started, and were able to benefit from those that wouldn't have happened if I was in, you know, finance and a stockbroker or
right. Yeah, I think you kind of get people in finance do tend to get locked into that. It's like I met this guy that I think he worked at a bank. So he was finance, but I really don't understand completely what finance people do other than they work at banks and investment institutions. He had a chance to go work for Amazon, I want to say, for a while. And he said he totally hated it. He was a little bit older than me. I think it might have had something to do with the generational thing. It's like and then he ended up going back to banking. So I get your point. It's like in the commercial real estate, it kind of like is a mind expander, right? And that's what it did for you.
Well, yeah, and I've always had an entrepreneurial mind. I've always,
nice.
loved business, and so I think going into that field kind of opened my eyes to what was out there. I mean, coming from a small town, and all those opportunities weren't there, so it was like eye opening that people were starting businesses. Another thing that it did is it showed me that these people who were starting businesses were no smarter than I was. I mean, they were just willing to do it and move forward with it. And what I started to realize was, well, geez, I can do that too, and move forward and just start. I think there's so many people out there that, before they move forward with their goals and their dreams, they want all the traffic lights to be green before they start down the road. And that's not the way. That's not the way it works. I mean, it's a lot like walking through fog. You can only see so far in front of you, but as you continue to take those steps through it, the landscape starts to open up, and you start to see more and more of what needs to happen. And that's the way to go after your goals. You don't have to have all the answers up front. And one thing I've realized, and we teach in our program, I Got Smarter, is we don't have a knowledge problem when it comes to our goals. We know what we need to do. We have an execution problem. We just
don't know how to do it, right?
Yeah, we just don't do what we're supposed to do.
Oh,
when we're
okay.
supposed to do it.
Gotcha. That's neat. Yeah, I get it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you talk about in your book.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I see like there's this secret strategy to harness the resourcefulness in any situation. Now, I can tell you're a resourceful guy, mostly from, your background, right? So what did you learn in your childhood and that whole experience that gave you this resourcefulness?
Well, I mean, I rarely find that lack of resources is the reason for us not being successful. I think that it's a lack of resourcefulness. And I mean, I learned that, growing up in severe poverty. I mean, I watched my mom figure out how to make things work. I mean, I talked about the lights not always being turned on. I remember, and I write about this in my book, but I remember one time somebody came to the door and they asked for Mitzi Tressler. And, I think I was only 7 or 8 years old at the time. And, I'm like, Mitzi Tressler. And they're like, yeah. My mom walks up and starts talking to the guy. And, I run out into the kitchen. I know where Mitzi's at. I grab her and I bring her in. And, it's a guy from the power company coming there to collect for a bill that hasn't been paid that Mitzi Tressler owes. And, I come running out with Mitzi, and Mitzi's our Siamese cat. My mom had put the power bill in our cat's name because it was in her name and it got turned off, and she had a bill that needed to be paid before they would turn it back on. It was in my name, and she had the cat. So she tried it with the cat, and I don't know how things worked back then, but somehow she got the power bill in our cat's name. And the guy looks at me and looks funny. At her, and he's like, "You didn't do that, did you?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did." And that's about being resourceful. I mean, she didn't have the money. She couldn't pay back bills, but she figured out a way to get it done.
Keep the lights on mostly.
Yes. Yeah. And there's so many things like that. Is just about figuring out how to be resourceful and not looking at what you lack. And
it is a key skill.
And I've used that my entire life. Is, you know what? I never really had all of the resources. None of us do to do what we just have to figure out a way and be resourceful, and you can always get through if you're resourceful enough.
My commander in England called that the FSO skill.
What is that?
Figure shit out. When you're clueless, it's like resourcefulness will just, okay, all right, let's figure this shit out. You can usually do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a mindset. I mean,
Right.
are you looking for
It's
problems?
like, don't
Are you
quit.
looking for
Right.
solutions? And
Right. Well, there's a lot of people that, haven't learned that skill yet. I think it's definitely a skill. And so their checklist in their mind is like, okay, once I get to the bottom of my checklist, I go find somebody smarter than me, right? They're not smarter than you. They just know how to figure shit out, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
And I
right.
also think they're the guys that get started. I mean, there's people out there that just move forward and they know, you know what, I'm going to figure it out as I get going, but I can't stand here and not do anything and just wait for everything to line up and be perfect.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about like victim mindset and because I know I think everybody falls into that a little bit. The old woe is me sort of, why me? I mean, if anybody had the excuse of having a victim mindset, it might be Nelson Tressler. I'm sure you lived it for a long time. So I guess let's talk a little bit about how you escaped that mindset.
Yeah. So, I mean, my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, the subtitle is you are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices.
Of your choices.
I think there's so many people who get that woe is me and they look at their circumstances and feel like there's nothing that they can do. But when you want to do something, all you have to do is choose to do it. And I don't want to make that sound simplistic. I know there's some horrible circumstances out there that people find themselves in, but for the most part, and I know this isn't always 100%, but for the most part, we are exactly where we choose to be. And if you're not where you want to be, then start making different choices and choose to be somewhere else. And what happens in the victim mindset is we start to assign our problems to people or, the weather, the economy, or the things president. Like that. And as soon as you start assigning your problems to someone else or something else, you've also given away all the control to fix it. Right. Because if it's somebody else's problem, then they have to change in order for your problem to go away. One of the philosophies that we have at I Got Smarter is I am 100% responsible for my own success.
Yes.
And when you take on that responsibility, no matter what situation you're in, now you've taken on the ability to fix it because you have control of it. And I think that was one of the things that helped me throughout my life is, you know what, if I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be successful because of me. It's not going to be, because of the circumstances of my birth or the circumstances of my childhood or any of that stuff. I took responsibility for it, and I knew that I was in control. And I knew that I would be where I chose to be. And we all are. I mean, if we want to be somewhere else, all we have to do is start making those choices to get us there, because we are in control. We can't control, the winds, that blow against us, but we absolutely can control how we set our sail. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall short on living their life with purpose and direction. They feel like they're just being blown around by all these things that they can't control.
Absolutely. Right.
And that's not true.
The first time I heard that, I totally rejected it. That what you just said, everything you just said, the first time I heard that, I was like, no, that can't be. So don't feel bad if you're listening and you hear that and you go, no, that can't be. Now, I actually found that, I think, first in a personal development of the spiritual ilk kind of book or, philosophy, wherein the author was not only saying you are 100% responsible for everything that happens in your life, but he actually extended it to pre-life. You know, it was probably like Deepak Chopra or somebody like that. It was like, you're responsible for everything that happened before you were born. I'm like, no, that can't be. But I accepted it anyway. Right. And that completely changed my life.
Yeah. Well, and it will, because all of a sudden you're in command.
Yeah. And when things go wrong or something happens that I don't like, and it happens to me basically every day, I think, right? Like I wake up and something doesn't go right, right? Or something goes a little bit wrong or horribly wrong, right? And then when I go to bed, I'm like, why did I do that to me? That's always the question now, right?
Right.
It's why did I do that to me?
Well, yeah, and
which is a better question, I think.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think when things happen to us, a lot of people are like, why is this happening to me, as opposed to why is this happening for me? And
right. Yes.
That was one of the mindset changes that I had. And one of the philosophies, probably my favorite philosophy at I Got Smarter, is that things only have the meaning that you are willing to give them. And
I like that.
What that means is you get to assign meaning to everything that happens to you. And why on earth, if you get to assign the meaning, why would you give it a bad meaning? And I know there's bad things out there.
That's really good.
for example, the circumstances of my childhood, for the longest time, nobody knew that. When I moved away, I didn't want anybody to know that, because I had dealt with it for the first 20 years of my life, and it was pain and it weakened me. The only person I told was my wife before I married her. I figured she deserved to know that. But I never told my kids. I never told my friends or coworkers or anybody about that. And then it's a
difficult share.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a difficult share.
And then I started thinking about what I was going to do with the rest of my life after I was able to sell some businesses. And then I started thinking, you know what? I lived this life for a reason. And, it is to help other people realize that, they're not a victim of their circumstances, but a product of their choices. And as soon as I started to give those circumstances a different meaning, a positive meaning, an inspiring meaning, all of a sudden I was energized by it. And I've loved telling that story now, because I know that it's going to do people good. It's the exact same circumstances. The only thing that's changed is the meaning that I've given them. And we can all do that.
You can
we can all do that with anything that happens to us.
Right.
We can spin it. And if we get creative enough, we can give it that positive meaning, something that strengthens us and something that helps us progress, as opposed to keeps us, shackled because we're giving it a negative meaning.
Right. Well, yeah. And it's also, you're getting yourself out of the blame game, because you can also, I think, I don't know if you talk about this in your book or not, but something else that helped me a lot was you could be blaming yourself and beating yourself up for all of these things that you're taking responsibility for. But I think there's a difference. There's a key distinction for me, at least, with the blame. The word blame sounds like the same as responsible, but it's not, right? Because blame has got this inherent sort of yes, you're responsible, and also you should be punished. That's kind of what blame means, right? To me, anyway. But if I say I'm responsible, that's different. That just means it happened because it's within my power. I made that happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that I need to punish myself or other people need to punish me, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes great. And those line up with our philosophies too. There's a couple other be grateful in all things.
Right.
And then,
yes.
You're talking about blame. I think a lot of that happens with when you're thinking, about perfection, and you need to be, perfect all the time. One of our philosophies is think progress, not perfection, because none of us are ever going to be perfect. None of us are ever going to live that perfect life. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say things we shouldn't have said. We're going to do things we shouldn't have done. We're going to sleep in when we should be working out. We're going to, step over that trash in the kitchen and let our wife pick it up. I mean, we all are going to do those sorts of things, but we can't beat ourselves up. I mean, we got to think,
Right.
we got to think progress, not perfection. And then we just need to get a little bit better.
Yeah. Baby steps, just
Yeah.
tiny little things. Right. Yeah. I think like with goal setting, I think it's, I don't know about you, but like habit building, goal setting, I like the idea of sometimes I think you have to learn how to do it. And the best way to learn how to make a goal or set a habit is just make it super, super easy. Right? Each step should, especially on a new habit or a new goal, make winning so easy you can't fail. That's what I like doing.
Well, and I mean, I'm glad you said that, because part of the I Got Smarter program is
Really? I didn't even know that.
we
Okay.
teach we teach everybody how to break big goals down into what we call a 4-week sprint. And
nice.
no matter how big that goal is, no matter how long the big goal is going to take, it might take a year, it might take 5 or 10 years, but your mind doesn't work well with that. There's no sense of urgency there. There's no real clear path that you can, work out 5 years from now. But when you take that and say, okay, what can I do in the next 4 weeks to get closer to that eventual goal? What goal can I set that I want to be at in the next 4 weeks in order to be closer to that? And now your mind can work with that. Your mind knows exactly where you're going to be in 4 weeks. And then another thing that it does is it brings up that urgency, like, oh, I got to get there within 4 weeks. But, if you have this goal that's 5 years out, what real urgency do you have today?
You can't do anything.
Right. And that's what our mind thinks. And,
Right.
and fighting this, this part of our brain that's, prehistoric, and it still thinks, if we do something new, if we go down a new path, there might be a saber-toothed tiger down there that's going to kill us. And we've got to kind of work around that and breaking those big goals down into 4-week sprints. And then we actually break them down even further. We have weekly milestones so that we can always be evaluating our goals and then also readjusting if we have to. And I Got Smarter as an acronym. Each one of those letters stands for something in the goal achievement process that helps us. Again, we've patched all the holes when it comes to goal achievement. So, you almost have to try to fail. I mean, the only way you fail is if you quit, and we almost make it impossible for you to quit. So
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're having a blast too. Are you doing a lot of podcasts now? It's a fun way to engage with people, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get my message out there, trying to get the message out there about I Got Smarter. And also we're using the book to, get people's attention about, that I Got Smarter is not just a bunch of theories and concepts that I pulled off of the internet. I mean, these are things that I've used, over the last 25 years to really design a life that I couldn't have even imagined, growing up. And,
right.
Anybody can do that. Anybody can, take a step back, really get crystal clear on their goals and understand all the reasons that we fail. The I Got Smarter program fixes those for people. So no matter if you've never been able to stick to a New Year's resolution more than a week or two, or if you feel like you're even a pretty decent goal achiever, this program will take your goal achievement to a whole new level. And you'll be doing things that you never thought imaginable before, and you'll be doing them quicker and more consistently than you've ever done before.
Yeah. And it sounds like so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I just noticed another thing. So talk a little bit about how you apply the system to like health improvement. You don't have to get super detailed.
Yeah, I mean, goals are the program helps you with every area of your life.
Okay, so it's like scaffolding, right? So you can use it to basically do anything you want to.
Exactly.
Make better.
I mean,
right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a health goal, or a relationship goal, a financial goal, business goal, lifestyle. I mean, they're all that same framework. And once you get crystal clear on it, then it's a matter of just taking those
Just
steps.
plug that in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I want to do X.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Well, we would write that goal a little differently because we put all of our
Smart
goals as if they've already happened.
Oh, nice.
And in the positive affirmation. So, and again, that's working with your brain.
You just said something there that is like, bothers me to no end, that you understand that the world doesn't. So let's talk a little bit about what you mean. Right. So like, when I say like mothers against drunk driving, why is that bad?
Well, because your brain doesn't work in negatives.
Right. I know. Keep talking about it. I just love it.
So, I mean, all of our goals, like if you say, I want to lose weight or lose 5 pounds, your brain kind of X's out that. But, we state a goal like that is, it's January, or let's say it's March 1st, 2021. And I weigh 185 pounds. I eat healthy and I work out 5 days a week. Now that's a way to write a goal. That's the goal you want to review every single morning and every single night. And your brain can wrap around that. It knows exactly where you need to be, as opposed to, you know what? I want to lose some weight. Well, okay. You lost a pound. Did you lose weight? Yeah, you lost weight. Is that where
your brain says, "Hey, I'm done. Let's have some bonbons."
Exactly. So there's so much to that. And,
that's good. I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I've been obsessed with goals and personal development for 25 years. I've tried every program that's out there. I've used it, and I know what's worked for me and what hasn't worked. And I sat down and wrote this program over 2.5 years and really worked it out. And then, it was originally paper, and it's going to be a lot easier if this thing is in an app. So we designed the app and made it simple. And, planning out your day takes 5 to 7, maybe 10 minutes at the most. And exactly what you need to do that day to achieve your goals. And then at night we have a reflection, our evening ritual where we're reflecting upon what our choices were like for the day, because your choices matter. Your choices are what's going to determine what type of life you're going to live. So we want to reflect upon that and then plan for the next day. And now all of a sudden, with literally less than 20 minutes a day, you're living a life of purpose. You're planning out your days. You're reflecting upon how your choices have affected you. And you do that long enough, you're going to end up living a life you can't even imagine.
Yeah, it gets so cool you don't actually believe that it's true almost sometimes.
I mean, I pinch myself every day, when I tell my story and realize, here I am. It's incredible.
Back when do you remember that movie, The Secret?
I do.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Did you like it? Okay. So when that came out, they had this sort of like a printout check, right? It was issued by the universe, and you could fill in the amount that you wanted. And I put $1 million in there, right? A couple of years ago. No, I don't even know when that book came out. Somewhere in the early aughts, I guess, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
But that came true. I was like, hey. So when that happened, I think it was briefly after I sold my California house, that happens, right? I was like, holy crap. It actually came true. That's when I was like, is this for real? I was like, no, maybe, what's his name? Elon Musk might be right. I think we're living in a simulation. We're all computer programs. Anyway, that was just a joke. This has been a blast, Nelson. Talk a little bit about NelsonTressler.com. Talk a little bit about the book and I Got Smarter as we wrap up.
Yeah. So you can go to NelsonTressler.com. Everything's on there that you can find I Got Smarter, but I Got Smarter is on the app stores. It's in Apple and it's also in Android.
Right
now we're giving away 30 free days. So you can go in there and try it and make sure it's a good fit for you.
Right.
And then after that, it's $9.99 a month.
Not bad.
And then you can buy the book on Amazon or anywhere else.
The Unlucky Sperm Club.
The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices.
That's perfect. Thank you, Nelson.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
This has
Great
been a
conversation.
blast. Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, you have a good one.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.